Good evening, everybody. This is ahead of our usual 8 p.m. slot because of obviously because of what's happened in the Ukrainian war at the moment. The dam, in Kherson, Zaporozhye region. These are 10 reasons why anybody who believes that Russia did it are not throwing straight dice. And we'll look at first of all, very, very stupid reason that people give that Russia did this to stop the Ukrainian advance from the various Ukrainian units on the islands. Now, the islands that are in the Dnipro River, the Ukrainians have been trying to use them as a bridgehead, and the Russians have been allowing them to go there before then wiping them out on those islands. There are many, many videos on YouTube and many videos on the internet showing exactly what the Russians are doing, inviting them in and then just smashing them to smithereens. So we're going to go through the 10 reasons why Russia did not do this, and we know, as far as anybody possibly can know, exactly who did do this. The military effects for Russia are far, far worse than they are for the Ukrainians. Very, very simply, the water would recede within 72 hours from these islands. However, the water that has flooded the Russian defences will not recede. And the reason for this is it floods all Russia's bunkers and trenches along the front lines. This is not going to be clear of water for God knows how long. The thing that is below ground is going to be completely flooded and completely useless, which gets rid of Russia's first line of defence, which is exactly what held up the Ukrainian super counter-offensive the other day when it got smashed to smithereens. You saw, if you've seen the videos, and there are videos out there, of tanks dashing around in mad circles, having got through or being caught up in the first line of defences and not being able to get at the attack that was coming their way. And that led them to driving around a field in a panic and just getting picked off. If you go and see some of the videos that are out there on YouTube, there are tanks just driving around in circles like maniacs. The next thing that you have to look at was the mass PR statement that was planned by the mainstream media. This is something that needs to be addressed here. The Before the shelling of the actual area itself finished, and it happened around 2 a.m., but didn't finish till about 4 a.m. in the morning. Half 3 to 4 a.m. Is the best we can nail it down to. The story that the Russians had blown their own dam was already out there, and it wasn't just out there from mainstream media. It was out there from pro-Ukrainian bloggers were holding live stream sessions. You can go and look at some of these and see the time that they actually started. Given the fog of war and the explosions raining all around, suddenly the dam has gone up is a major story everywhere. Before anybody actually really knew, and everybody immediately was blaming the Russians, not waiting to see whether or not that was the case. The next thing that you need to look at is that Ukraine, NATO, the US, or we'll call them collectively the West, have a history of blowing things up underwater, don't they? They've blown up a dam before, so they know how to do this one. Everybody thinks it's a bit too James Bond getting a mini sub and a couple of divers and planting explosive charges at the base of a wall. I spoke to a friend of mine who served in the SBS for a good number of years, and he tells me this is entirely possible. He said it is absolutely, it's not a walk in the park, but it's not entirely difficult either. They also have a history, remember, of blowing up Nord Stream pipelines. Anybody who thinks that, and again, the Russians were blamed for this, anybody who thinks that's not the case, they've left their footprints there, literally, to show who actually did it. And anybody who thinks it was on a Ukrainian pleasure yacht is not really, has got a few marbles rolling around. The other thing that is a big indicator is Surovikin knew that this was a danger and in fact moved all his troops from there, and he also moved all the people out of that region simply because they'd already gamed out the scenario that if Ukraine flooded that area, it would kill a lot of troops and would probably kill quite a few civilians. You have to remember that some of the areas will be 10 metres underwater. Now, within 72 hours, that 10-mile stretch that it has affected will start to return to normal. The islands definitely first. So that gives you all the thing of the Ukrainians can just return to the islands if they so wish and continue to get wiped out. At the moment, we have from the safety officer there at the nuclear plant says it is not currently under threat. And we have to go by what he's saying. I'm no nuclear expert, but I know what happens when you can't use the cooling towers. And Russians have some expertise in this, given what happened in Chernobyl. The other thing that we have to look at here, and this is an absolute killer for the West here, is that Ukraine began moving troops off the islands at midnight last night. Now, that seems like a hell of a coincidence, does it not? That they were moving troops 2 hours before the actual dam fell apart, whether through underwater explosion or shelling. There are, as I've explained before, there's three possible scenarios. The dam was so badly weakened that it eventually, under that shelling, cracked and went. It was hit directly by some sort of missile or shell that enabled that to happen, or it was blown up from underwater. The idea that Russia did it makes absolutely no military sense and no PR sense at all, because you knew that the world would jump on them straight away. It's right up there. Ukraine also have a habit of blaming the Russians for things that they're doing themselves, just getting in their PR first. The other thing that you need to look at here, which is very, very telling indeed, we had a secret visit straight after the 24 hours after the Russian beat back the counteroffensive, this wonderful counteroffensive that was being launched by Ukraine, that cost them many, many men and quite a few tanks and a lot of armoured vehicles. And there's a lot now of the tanks that they were meant to be keeping back crawling around the front lines. The James Cleverly, who is I believe he's the UK Foreign Secretary, went and had a secret meeting with Zelensky. And when he was questioned on whether or not they had actually done it, he used the politician's answer of the Nova Kakhovka dam was only blown up because of Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Which is a double-speak way of saying, I don't want to answer that question. If somebody could answer him directly, does he or anybody else in NATO, including the Americans and the Ukrainians, have any prior knowledge of the destruction of that dam? I think you would be surprised if he didn't give the same answer. It only happened because of Russia's invasion of Ukraine. So there we are. Let me know in the comments what you think. But there is no question, as far as I'm concerned, that Russia did not do this. It makes no military sense. It makes no PR sense. The dam disappearing benefits Ukraine greatly, and is also, it is a great PR stunt, isn't it? After 24 hours after the absolute debacle of the counteroffensive. And of course, we will have this counteroffensive narrative again and again and again. It will be a probing operation until they make a breakthrough. If they keep getting beaten back, but the moment they make a breakthrough in one area or another, this may carry on for 4 or 5 months. They'll be claiming the counteroffensive has started. Make no bones about it. With 60 tanks and over 5,000 men charging forward in 5 different locations, the counteroffensive is well underway. It just failed, and this nice little way of deflecting from what an absolute catastrophe that was seems very, very relevant, doesn't it, 24 hours later. Thank you for listening.